One.
Okay, you're what they call overweight. Big. You think you're fabulous, bubbly, sexy. Is that how you really feel, though? That's Kilroy, tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock on BBC One.
Look, this blind.
What's mine is yours. What is yours is mine.
I haven't slept a wink.
I will not budge an inch.
You've been rehearsing the lines for 400 years.
You've beaten me out of house and home.
Now enjoy a night in with Shakespeare. Friday from 7 on BBC Knowledge, the new documentary channel for digital viewers.
Highlights of last year's Golf Masters plus a preview of this year's tournament. That's over from BBC Two in 15 minutes. This is BBC One. Now the BBC News with Anna Ford. It's 1 o'clock.
Thousands of tons of food is promised to famine-stricken Ethiopia. Europe to organise a massive airlift for the millions threatened with starvation. Removing the rubble stone by stone, the search for the missing workman goes on. Microsoft boss Bill Gates launches the fight to save his empire. And oh, to be in England now that April's here. Time for cricket, if they could clear the snow. Good afternoon and welcome to the BBC News at 1. The European Union has announced plans to send massive shipments of food aid to Ethiopia. After 3 years of drought, 16 million people in the region are threatened with starvation, and aid workers have criticised the international community for its lack of response. Some aid is getting through to the worst-hit areas around Godey in the southeast, from where our correspondent Raghi Omar sent this report.
Every morning at first light, they gather from all parts of Godey town to wait and hope for some relief from hunger and disease. Mothers anxiously bring their children to be registered at one of the 3 feeding centres in this whole area, praying that their children may be admitted for treatment. But inside, there's only room for the most critical cases. This is the therapeutic feeding centre for the most severely malnourished. There is so much need, but only the most basic facilities, but at least it is something. It was established by a local aid agency, the Ogaden Welfare Society, with financing from international relief groups. For many children, it is the difference between life and death. Mohammed Yusuf Ma'alin is fighting to cling on to life. His family remain at his side, helping to feed him high-energy protein formula. He is 4 years old, but he weighs only 15 pounds. His family walked for 5 days to bring him to the centre. It's not just basic medical facilities that has drawn so many thousands of people to Godey. This is the Shabelle River, which runs through the town. It provides plentiful water in a region ravaged by drought. But local aid workers feel the international community has not delivered on the pledges of aid it's made to Ethiopia.
It was not enough and it was not coming on time. There was delays and there is a logistic problem on the side of the government to deliver even what they have in hand. And for the last month of March, there has not been any food distributed to the displaced people as well as to the affected people at all.
These camps on the edge of Godey are now home to the nomads who've had to leave their villages because of the drought. Reaching towns like Godey is now their only hope of trying to find assistance. But for some, having reached here, their ordeal is still not over. Today's announcements by the European Union that it is to send more food aid could not have come too soon. Raghi Omar, BBC News, Godey, Ethiopia.
Rescuers searching for 3 men trapped under a collapsed building in Hull say there's still a possibility that they may be alive. The men were working on a derelict warehouse when it fell on top of them yesterday morning. Our North of England correspondent Richard Wells is in Hull. Richard.
It's now almost 30 hours since the interior of the building collapsed, burying the 3 men. The rescue effort is enormous, but it's also difficult and dangerous. Rescue workers are clawing at the tons of building debris with their bare hands. They know where the 3 men were last seen, moments before the 5-storey warehouse collapsed, but getting to them is proving immensely difficult and time-consuming. Special listening equipment has been put into the building to detect any signs of life. Nothing has been heard, but rescuers hope the men are sheltered in a tiny cavity and are still alive.
Unfortunately, it's a long, laborious job, but we've got to consider two things. First of all, the safety of our own crews is paramount, and also we don't want to be disturbing too much of the debris at a time, which could affect if the casualties. We're hoping that the casualties are trapped in some sort of void down there.
The risk of yet more of the building collapsing is high. Several times rescuers have been forced to withdraw for their own safety. The crane is holding up one wall to allow the rescue effort to continue. The families of the missing men, all are from Hull, are being comforted by police liaison officers. This morning, relatives of one of them were brought to the scene to see what's being done to find them. But so far, there's no news. No one's prepared to say how long this effort will continue. There is still hope, but time, Anna, is running out.
Presumably they will go on lifting up the rubble until they feel that there is absolutely no hope at all. But how long do you think that will be, Richard?
Well, they have been going on since just after 8:30 yesterday morning. They continued throughout the night, waiting for the crane behind me to arrive to continue with that effort. It's gone on all morning. There is a slight break now while the fire officers just over there have a quick lunch, and then they'll be back. How long? As long as it takes as far as they're concerned, but they will find them.
Richard, thanks very much indeed. Microsoft chairman Bill Gates says he'll put up a fight to save his company from being broken up after it was found guilty of operating a monopoly in the computer industry. In a landmark decision, an American judge ruled that the company had illegally blocked other companies from offering access to the internet. The American government says the ruling will benefit computer users. Our internet correspondent Rory Kethlin-Jones has been finding out how. Rory.
Anna, the ruling from the judge last night could hardly have been worse news for Microsoft or better for its enemies. The software giant was found guilty of using its powers to smother competition, but Bill Gates was quick to fight back. In a 20-page document, Judge Thomas Penfield Jackson outlined the way Microsoft had acted to ostracize an opponent which dared to mount a challenge. Microsoft made sure its web browser, that's the software used to surf the internet, ended up on millions of computers, crowding out the rival product from Netscape. But all along, Bill Gates has insisted he's acting in consumers' interests.
This ruling turns on its head the reality that consumers know, that our software has helped make PCs more accessible and affordable to millions.
Now, Microsoft awaits the judge's decision on any punishment. Some opponents are warning only a breakup of the company will allow proper competition. So let's look at the power of the Microsoft empire over one of the world's most important industries. When it comes to operating systems, the basic software running a computer, it has 88% of the market. 80% of users have its web browser, Internet Explorer, allowing them to surf the net. And as for word processing, well, the company has about 60% of that market. Consumer groups believe the ruling from Washington could end up benefiting us all.
The important thing about this judgment for consumers is that it really opens up the market to competition, potentially. That will mean that other players can come in, like Linux with their Red Hat operating system, which is an alternative to Windows. If that happens, that means that other software vendors will be able to come in and develop applications for that, potentially lower prices, and therefore consumers could get a better deal in the high street.
Some, though, question whether that's really likely to happen, whether lots of different systems would actually benefit users. We asked shoppers outside a computer store what they thought.
Hopefully I'll buy cheaper software and get cheaper computers.
Well, I think it's probably a good idea, to be honest. I think it's good to have competition. I think it'll help improve systems and improve performance at the end of the day.
Who's going to replace them? With what? They've got the market, they've had the market for years. There is no alternative.
Well, it could be years before this case is finally decided. In the meantime, the internet will be moving on to mobile phones and other devices where Microsoft does now face a serious challenge from rival companies. Anna.
Thank you, Rory. And BBC News Online has in-depth coverage of the Microsoft ruling and an interactive guide to the story so far. There's a growing row over comments by a junior minister who's appeared to call on people to boycott Barclays Bank. The Environment Minister, Chris Mullin, said last week that people would vote with their feet in protest at branch closures. Barclays says the comments were irresponsible, but this morning Downing Street said Mr Mullin's remark had been taken out of context.
This Friday, Barclays is taking the unusual step of shutting 172 branches in one day. Residents of villages like Kippax in Yorkshire will be left without a bank, with the nearest alternative branch over 6 miles away. They've lobbied the banks with petitions and letters, but feel their concerns have been ignored.
What they're saying to the customers of Barclays branch is that we don't care what your opinion is, we're going to go ahead with our removal programme at whatever the cost.
Now it's emerged that the residents' protests are getting support from a government minister. Chris Mullin attacked Barclays' policy over closures and referred to past boycotts of the bank over dealings with apartheid South Africa. He said customers were free to switch accounts as a form of popular uprising.
The customers of banks themselves must make a commercial decision. If their bank fails to continue meeting their needs, they may consider transferring their business to another that does, either directly at a local branch or through an agency agreement with the post office.
The remarks were seen as an unprecedented call by a minister for a boycott of a private company. In a statement, Barclays said, "We are extremely disappointed at Chris Mullin's irresponsible remarks. This is a difficult week for ourselves and our customers. Customers are changing the way they bank, and we need to respond quickly in a competitive world." Today, the Conservative leader, William Hague, joined the politicians attacking Barclays.
I think it is outrageous, the withdrawal of networks from rural areas. It particularly hits the area I represent in the Yorkshire Dales, so I don't defend the banks on this at all.
Now Barclays has been attacked from across the political spectrum, it's likely to take months or even years for the bank to recover its good name. Andrew Verity, BBC News.
The Trade and Industry Secretary, Stephen Byers, will take on his critics this afternoon in an attempt to woo the business community. He'll tell the annual conference of the British Chambers of Commerce that he's cutting the burden of red tape for thousands of small companies. Our political correspondent, Carol Walker, is at the conference in central London. Carol.
Yes, the Trade Industry Secretary, Stephen Byers, whose reputation has taken a battering over his handling of the Rover crisis, will try to reassure business that Labour has its interests at heart. He'll talk about the government's agenda for enterprise and innovation. But as representatives of many small and medium-sized companies gather here, there are growing signs of discontent.
The glossy vegetables produced by this North London company are in fact replicas for shop displays. The man in charge here says the reality of the government's policies does not match the bright pro-business presentation. He says his company is suffering from the high pound against the euro and a rising tide of bureaucracy.
When I come to do the payroll, I'm looking to spend about a day to a day and a half a week doing administration which directly relates to benefits, which has nothing to do with getting turnover out the door.
When Stephen Byers addresses the conference this afternoon, his message will be that the government is trying to reduce the burden of red tape.
I'll be announcing that we're lifting one particular burden, which is the requirement to have a legal audit of accounts every year. This will benefit some 200,000 small companies and will save them over £200 million a year, money which I hope they'll be able to use in investment and further job creation.
The battle for the business vote is already well underway. The Shadow Chancellor, who's also speaking today, says many business people are disillusioned with what he calls the ignorance and arrogance of the government.
They are bitterly disappointed with a government that pretended to be in favour of business, but has let them down time and time again, that's actually imposed an enormous burden of extra taxation, £30 billion according to the British Chambers of Commerce.
So the Tories are eager to seize on the grumblings amongst the business community here, but the government says that what business needs above all is the sort of stable, well-managed economy that the Chancellor is delivering. Anna.
So what effect will all these views have on Labour, Carol?
Well, I think that what you have to remember is that the support of the business community was an absolutely key part of that broad coalition which won Labour that landslide victory at the last election. And although some people who are running their own businesses do like some of the things that the government are doing, the cuts in capital gains tax, for example, these key concerns about the high pound and the burden of regulations are leading many to question whether the reality matches the rhetoric. Let's not forget that this is the sort of territory which the Tories are desperate to regain. So I think Labour's going to have to be working a little bit harder if it's going to shore up its support amongst the business community between now and the next election.
Carol, thanks very much. A toddler is recovering in hospital in Edinburgh after swallowing an ecstasy tablet. The boy, who's 1, is believed to be the youngest victim of the drug in the country. Doctors aren't revealing his condition. It's thought he got the tablet from his mother's handbag. Police say the woman isn't involved in drugs and are treating it as an accident. David Coulthard has lost his appeal against his disqualification from the Brazilian Grand Prix. The decision was made at the sport's governing body in Paris today. Coulthard finished second in the race last month, but was disqualified when stewards ruled that his car had an illegal front wing. The row over the safety of mobile phones has intensified after claims that hands-free headsets may increase rather than decrease exposure to radiation. The industry, which is enjoying a massive sales boom, says it's surprised at the research, which was commissioned by the Consumers Association, and they questioned their test methods.
Around 25 million people in Britain have mobile phones. Many have hands-free sets, not just because they're convenient, but also because they believe they're safer. But research suggests using some of them actually triples radiation, with cables acting as aerials, focusing waves on people's brains.
Already we have numerous reports from people using mobile phones of very severe headaches, the feeling of a steel band being tightened around their head, subsequent sleeping problems, short-term memory loss. This is just in the short term.
It's perhaps not surprising people want to reduce any possible risk.
The Consumers Association is also concerned about literature which people might find confusing. It cites, for example, this pamphlet by the Carphone Warehouse entitled Mobile Phones and Health. It says if people are concerned, they should use an earpiece attachment, giving the impression that this might be safer. In fact, the Carphone Warehouse has now amended its wording.
The 2 kits tested were BT Cellnet set for the Philips Savvy phone and an earpiece for the Ericsson A1018S sold by the Carphone Warehouse. There are fears there could be problems with others, but radiation experts say people shouldn't be alarmed.
What I'm against is the scaremongering that goes on by the use of the term radiation associated with mobile phones. They are radio wave transmitters. Well, they're not X-ray transmitters. It's not highly dangerous radiation.
The government is due to publish its own investigation into mobile phone safety in a few weeks' time. Karen Bauman, BBC News.
And the time's nearly 17 minutes past 1, and later in the programme, on the campaign trail and the race for London's mayor. And blasting off on a mission to save the Mir space station. The cricket season starts this week, so perhaps it was inevitable that blizzards and wintry storms should sweep across the southern half of Britain. The south and southwest of England have been particularly badly hit, and there have been heavy snowfalls in Hampshire, Berkshire and Hertfordshire. Flights to Luton Airport have been badly disrupted, and the airport had to be closed for a time because its runway was blocked by snow. Our reporter John Kay is in one of the worst hit places, Priddy, in Somerset. John.
Well, Anna, this is the village green in Priddy, believe it or not, but there's not much green to be seen today. We've had several more inches of snow this morning. The roads are blocked around here, and none of the houses have got any electricity at all. For the kids, it means a day off school and the chance to build a snowman. But for the farmers around here, life is a lot more difficult. Springtime in Somerset. After one of the mildest winters on record, this snowstorm took everyone by surprise. Farmers in the Mendips have been badly hit. Some have lost hundreds of newly born lambs.
Up until last night, we'd lost about 100. Now overnight, the snow's drifted up badly. You're probably looking at probably double that figure. Until the snow goes, we can't really tell, but there's a lot of dead lambs out there.
High winds have led to drifting, 6 foot deep in places. Roads were closed as drivers struggled to make their way through.
All right, this time of the year we know that it's not going to hang around too long, but I think everybody's expectations have been built. But here on Mendip, we can play some nasty tricks on you. Certainly done that last night.
Even in areas that escaped the snow, gale force winds have caused thousands of pounds worth of damage. In Cheddar, this fallen tree destroyed 4 parked cars. In Devon, winds reached more than 65 miles an hour, forcing drivers to abandon their cars on Dartmoor. Several roads were closed around Oakhampton. Thousands of homes are still without power. Some people have had no electricity for almost 24 hours. Well, the forecasters say the worst of the snow is over, here at least for the moment. But what people around here are worried about now is what happens when this starts to thaw and the possibility of flooding. Anna.
John, thank you. The European Court of Human Rights has begun hearing allegations that British security forces operated a shoot-to-kill policy in Northern Ireland in the 1980s. Lawyers for the families of 12 men shot dead in 4 separate incidents say their deaths were never properly investigated. The court is not expected to announce its decision for several months.
This was Loch Gall in County Armagh, May 1987. The part-time police station was badly damaged by an IRA bomb carried in a mechanical digger. But the police had been expecting the IRA to strike. 8 men involved in the attack were shot dead by the security forces. Today, judges at the European Court of Human Rights were told these men were among the victims of a shoot-to-kill policy operated by the British government in Northern Ireland. Their lawyers said there was compelling and disturbing evidence that suspects were killed rather than arrested.
The UK government has violated both substantively and procedurally the most fundamental provision in the Convention, the right to life.
The families of the men who died were in Strasbourg for the hearing. Mairead Kelly's brother Patrick was one of the IRA men involved in the Loch Gall bombing. She says there was no need for the security forces to have killed him.
These people should have been arrested prior to this attack, and if they had been arrested, not only would we be looking at 9 people who weren't killed, but there was also a civilian seriously injured that night, and all this didn't have to take place.
In an earlier case involving 3 IRA members shot dead by British troops in Gibraltar, the Human Rights Court said there had to be an effective official investigation whenever individuals were shot by agents of the state or by anybody else. The purpose of today's hearing is to decide what requirements must be met before an investigation can be considered effective. Today, lawyers for the British government said that police investigations and inquests did satisfy the requirements of the Human Rights Convention, but the government was asked some demanding questions by the British judge, and the United Kingdom can't be confident of success. Joshua Rosenberg, BBC News, Strasbourg.
In Japan, the entire cabinet has had to resign so that a new prime minister can be chosen to succeed Keizo Obuchi, who collapsed last week after suffering a stroke. The ruling Liberal Democratic Party is expected to meet tomorrow to elect a new leader. The London mayoral candidate Ken Livingstone has denied claims that he broke company law by taking a loan from the firm that he owns. Yesterday, Mr Livingstone was formally expelled by the Labour Party for standing as an independent. The News at 1 has been on the campaign trail with him as part of our series on the main candidates.
You'd almost think he was mayor already, and it's not just the polls. Wherever he goes, it seems to be the same.
I hope you get in. I'm going to vote for you. You're the best man for the job.
If you lose, I'll leave my wife.
Is there the next more Lord Mayor of London? But can his popularity survive the attacks, like the idea that he raked in undeclared media earnings through his one-man company, and now the claim that he broke the law when he took those earnings as a company loan? At any rate, the old label of left-wing maverick doesn't seem to be sticking. So has he changed?
Who doesn't change over 20 years? I mean, you change physically, you change mentally, and you're changing what you understand. There'd be something really wrong with me if I couldn't do a better job 20 years on than I did when I was 34.
As for those who are still wary, he has a message. It's not that he got it wrong before, it's that he could work with New Labour in future.
I will have disagreements with Tony Blair's government. I want more money spent on London, I want things done more quickly. But they won't be great issues of principle. They'll be part of the normal debate and pressure of politics.
But Ken Livingstone's past is fresh in New Labour memories, and it scares them. The Livingstone, who, as leader of the Greater London Council, made waves in national politics. The council leader who met Sinn Féin years before mainstream politicians even dreamed of doing the same. Now he's sharpened his skills. He's defying Labour on policy issues like transport. But to some pundits, he's made most impact as the man the party control freaks couldn't stop.
Ken Livingstone has played the martyr to perfection, but I think what this election hasn't been about so far is policy. He's gathered together a whole range of people who clearly like him, some who don't, who just want to box the ears of the Labour government. But when it comes to policy, that hasn't been what the campaign's been about so far.
Since the start of devolution, the voters have had more choice, and so far they've used it to put more pressure on the party in power at Westminster. The election of a city mayor was always going to be dominated by personalities, and so far that's worked in Ken Livingstone's favour too. But he'll have to fend off all the attacks on his conduct and his character. The main parties won't be running up the white flag just because he's a long way ahead in the polls. And Ken Livingstone has become rather fashionable. He's feted at events like this fundraising art auction, adopted as the favourite cause of some who want to assert their individuality.
950. 1,000.
His ambitions have grown, but the pressure's rising too as he tries to complete the business of selling himself to the voters.
Going once, going twice, gone.
John Pienaar, BBC News.
Interest-free loans for nurses and more help for the young, single and homeless are expected in the latest shake-up of housing policy in England. A government green paper published this afternoon is also expected to suggest councils should have a far wider duty to help vulnerable groups to find homes.
It's thought key workers like nurses could get interest-free loans under plans contained in the Green Paper published this afternoon. Loans could be up to £50,000. The Royal College of Nursing is holding its annual conference in Bournemouth, where reaction to this idea was quite positive.
I think it's a good incentive, but I would suggest that the salary is more of an issue than the actual topping up of a loan. It's encouraging people to get into debt.
You can't possibly afford to live in central London or in Oxford or in many of the large cities and buy a house on a staff nurse salary. It's just not possible.
A nurse with 3 years' experience earns around £16,000. A teacher with the same level of experience around £18,000. Official figures show that housing's beyond their reach in nearly 3/4 of English council areas. For example, with a 95% mortgage in Shropshire, where the average house price is £79,596, earnings of over £25,000 a year are needed. While in Northamptonshire, average price £82,759, you need to earn over £26,000 a year. As well as nurses, other key service personnel like firefighters could also get help in this way. However, some believe that the range of jobs where people do need assistance could be quite large. The housing charity Shelter believes other workers should be entitled to help.
Hospitals also need the cleaners and the porters every day, and they need affordable homes too.
Young single people facing homelessness when fleeing domestic violence or leaving care are also likely to see more help in the Green Paper, which is being billed as the widest-ranging look at housing issues for a generation. Rory McLean, BBC News.
Well, it had seemed its days were numbered, but this morning 2 Russian cosmonauts began a mission to try to bring the troubled space station Mir back to life. Last year, the Russian space program decided to decommission Mir because of a lack of funds. But investors have now offered to develop it for commercial use, possibly as a hotel.
Early this morning, 2 cosmonauts suited up for a mission few people thought would happen again, a manned flight to Mir. And thanks to $20 million from an American millionaire and other foreign investors in Mir Corp, Russia's national space program is back in business. The launch from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan passed by without a hitch. Once on board Mir, the cosmonauts hope to identify an air leak and effectively give it a spring clean for other potential crews. There are also talks of commercial opportunities, such as adapting Mir into a space hotel. But not everyone will be happy about its renaissance, least of all the American space agency NASA. And while officials insist Mir is in good shape, NASA would rather Russia concentrated on the International Space Station, whose construction is badly behind schedule. Sue Nelson, BBC News.
And at 27 minutes past 1, the main news again. The European Union is to send massive shipments of food aid to Ethiopia. 16 million people in the region are now threatened with starvation. That's all this Tuesday lunchtime from the BBC News at 1. Good afternoon.
For news headlines every 15 minutes, go to BBC News 24. BBC News, whenever you want it.
Hello, good afternoon. It's more like the middle of winter than spring at the moment. You may have seen the pictures on the news earlier on of the snowfall across the southern part of the UK, and it's bitterly cold everywhere. Temperatures this afternoon just between 3 and 7 degrees Celsius in a cold north wind, which is likely to gust as high as 50 miles an hour across parts of England through the day. If you want warm weather, really you need to be further towards the south. Temperatures in Munich yesterday climbed as high as 21 degrees Celsius, but even here it's going to cool down over the next few days.
as the green colours push down from the northwest. But then, towards the end of the week and over the weekend, it looks like it's going to turn milder across France and indeed across the British Isles. At the same time as things turn warmer, it's also going to settle down here in the UK as we see the areas of low pressure which are bringing our current rain, sleet and snow move away in the next 24 hours, and that's going to allow high pressure to move in from the west, and for many of us there'll be plenty of dry and fine weather around. It's dry and fine in many parts of the north at the moment, but we do have some wintry showers heading down the eastern side of Scotland, some showers heading in towards the northwest too, but most of the wet weather is further towards the south. There's still some sleet and snow over high ground, but really we're worried about the amount of rain in the far southeast of England now. We could well have some difficult driving conditions with surface spray and reduced visibility, and indeed some localised flooding. Already we have a river on red alert. This is the West Brook between Studhill and south of Thanet Way. That's near Herne Bay in Kent. And further north we also have some rivers on red flood alert. These are along through East Anglia, along the Alconbury Brook, River Kim and the River Great Ouse. Now, it should dry out and brighten up across central parts of England through this afternoon, but we'll continue to see wet weather in the southeastern corner until after dark. And elsewhere, really, there's a mixture of sunny spells and some wintry showers. And there's a reminder of those temperatures. It really is going to feel bitter, particularly in that wind. But it looks like it's going to get a little bit less windy through tonight and into tomorrow, so it should feel just a little bit less cold. Tonight, though, will be cold and frosty with some ice forming on untreated roads, particularly where we've had some rain, sleet and snow through today, as temperatures dip as low as -1 or -2. But at least for many of us, it'll be a dry and sunny start to the day tomorrow, although from the word go, there'll be some wintry showers towards the east coast, and those showers could crop up across England and Wales during the afternoon. Then on Thursday and Friday, for many of us, there'll be plenty of sunshine, and those temperatures will start to climb. That's the forecast. Bye-bye.
BBC Local Radio asked who is the hero of your community.
I nominate Joyce Tweedale. She fostered me and over 250 other children.
My teacher, Miss Larson.
Ray Dedicote Sanctuary gives animals a second chance.
I nominate Harry Cooper. To date, he's made about £2 million worth of toys for charity.
We've both had bad accidents, but Nick Morton saved our lives.
Every community has its heroes, and you can meet them through BBC Local Radio. Call us for information on your local station. BBC Local Radio. It's your voice.
Do what I say and don't scream.
A dangerous hunter on the prowl.
The nature of the offences was absolutely horrific.
How many more's he done?
But with your help.
Crime Watch will be the main focus of our appeal.
There could be dozens of women who've been attacked.
The hunter became the hunted.
Someone close to him knows who he is.
Somebody had to stop him.
Are you Richard Baker?
Unfortunately, it was me. The Hunter and the Hunted. The DJ Rapist. A Crime Watch File special. Tonight at 9:30 on BBC One.
Now on BBC One, the news in the southeast with Charlie Figgis.
This lunchtime, Ken Livingstone under fire again over his financial affairs. He says the Labour Party are playing dirty tricks against him. Forget the April showers, snowstorms forced Luton Airport to close. Good afternoon. Ken Livingstone is today at the centre of fresh allegations about his financial affairs. The independent candidate for London Mayor is accused of breaching company laws by taking around £40,000 in loans from his own company. Well, Sean Lay is in our Westminster studio. Sean, what's been happening?
Well, judging by his previous events that have been raising money for him, you wouldn't think Ken Livingstone's campaign was in need of getting any loans from his company, Local Action, which is based in Brighton. Indeed, last night, a gallery launch in central London raised through auction £110,000 for his campaign. Nonetheless, the allegations suggest that Mr. Livingstone, according to one newspaper this morning, arranged a loan from his company and that may be in breach of company law. Now, Mr. Livingstone is denying that. The Labour Party denies his claim that it's orchestrated any kind of dirty trick and says it was just found out by a newspaper. Nonetheless, the Labour MP for Hackney, Brian Sedgemoor, has taken up the case and complained to the Department of Trade and Industry, demanding an inquiry. The Trade Secretary, Stephen Byers, gave his reaction a short time ago.
We have a very clear convention in the DTI which is applied across successive administrations, which is that we don't comment on whether or not the department is investigating any individual, even if they're a high-profile Member of Parliament.
Delphic response there from Stephen Byers. Well, Mr Livingstone's campaign launch this morning in Kilburn in his Brent constituency was somewhat overshadowed by these allegations. Our reporter Joanne Coburn joined in there and asked him how he responded to the criticism of his financial affairs.
The Evening Standard has now got a definitive legal opinion which shows that because mine is a private company, none of this applies. This would only occur if this was a publicly quoted company where other shareholders' money was involved. And that was why, when this first came up several years ago, the Standard and the Reserve looked at it and just dismissed it as a story.
Yeah, but what about what it's going to do to your image coming out at this time? It's not very good, is it?
I think most people recognise that Rupert Murdoch and the Times are not supporting me. They had dirty tricks all last week alleging I was going to have gay marriages, I was going to do a whole range of things which would clearly be deeply offensive to a lot of Londoners. They had stuff the week before saying the Irish peace process would collapse. All of it's anonymous, and this stuff actually is actionable.
Now, what about the threat of a DTI investigation about it?
Well, that's where the whole thing breaks down. This is not a public company. There's nobody else's money involved but my own, and therefore there can't be a DTI inquiry. The whole Times story is a fraud from start to finish, and that's why most other papers haven't really taken it up.
Ken Livingstone talking there to Joe Coburn. Now, of course, Livingstone's launch is not the only person to launch his campaign today.
No, indeed. As well as Ken Livingstone, Steve Norris, who's the Conservative candidate for mayor, launched his campaign in central London a short time ago. Mr Norris's campaign is based on proposals on dealing with transport, on crime and disorder, and a campaign to get more of the money raised from taxpayers in London to actually be spent here in London. He says it's about action, not politics.
I'm talking about action on bus prices, on bus availability, on getting a better tube system working, on making some coherent progress on walking and cycling improvements, making the police more responsive to the needs of Londoners, and doing something about the enormous disparity between wealth and poverty in this city.
And when will we know who's definitely in the race?
Amazing, isn't it, Charlie? This seems to have been going on for months, and yet officially there aren't any candidates yet at all. Not until 4 o'clock this afternoon, when the Chief Returning Officer for London, Bob Hughes, finally pins up the list of names, where we know how many people have found the £10,000 they need and the 330 signatures from around London to ensure they can take part in this contest. And it could well be a very long ballot paper facing us on May the 4th.
Sean, thanks very much. Other news now, and as you may have heard, Barclays Bank is to axe 172 of its smaller branches this week. The decision has prompted angry reaction across the country. In the Kent seaside town of Westgate, more than 1,000 have signed a petition opposing the loss of its last remaining branch.
Westgate still boasts a variety of shops and small businesses many communities will envy. 60% of the people who live here are retired, well served by their local traders. But they'll be the least able to travel miles to surrounding towns like Margate to draw cash once their last bank branch, Barclays, closes on Friday. And in future, if pensions are paid through banks, they'll have no choice but to travel to draw them.
But it means them paying fare to go and draw their pension. Now, as you know, the pension isn't that great that it can make allowances for people having to pay bus fares every time they want to get some money out.
There's anger towards Barclays because it chased new customers by telling people the branch would remain in the town. The move came after the closure of local branches of the NatWest and Lloyds, although Lloyds customers have arrangements to use the post office. Businessmen like Angelo Dondi fear their customers who travel to draw cash won't return to spend money in the town.
Most of them have not got their own transport. So they've got to rely on somebody to give them a lift or get a taxi or a bus. Therefore, they're going to go to the other town, and while they're there, they'll probably do some of the shopping there.
More than 1,000 here have signed a petition urging Barclays to realise the hardships and knock-on effects of a hard-nosed business decision. Robin Gibson, Newsroom South East, Westgate.
Victims of racist crime are being given personal alarms which alert the police the moment they're set off. The security pendants will link the user with a police station around the clock.
This woman suffered years of domestic abuse. She finally contacted the police after her husband turned up at her home in the middle of the night. He banged on the door so much she let him in. She managed to escape, but he smashed up the flat. Now she's got help and feels safer because of these personal pendant alarms that are being issued to people in Lambeth who've suffered hate crime and fear another attack. Help can be summoned at the touch of this panic button. The pendant alerts a police control room via Lambeth Council at any time, day or night, and it triggers a recording of any sound of activity at the scene, which can be used later as evidence. During a trial in Lambeth, there have been no repeat attacks on anyone involved in the pendant alarm scheme.
There is still work to do about how we evaluate that, but our sense is this is something that we can give to victims, which actually is going to make them feel safer in their own homes, and for that reason we're prepared to run with it very early on.
This woman says she'd encourage anyone who's suffered domestic, racial or homophobic abuse to speak up, and she hopes that the Careline pendant alarm system will eventually be introduced elsewhere in London to give other people peace of mind. Martine Croxall, Newsroom South East.
Sport and McLaren Formula One driver David Coulthard has lost his appeal against disqualification from the Brazilian Grand Prix. At a hearing in Paris, the sport's governing body, the FIA, upheld the decision to disqualify the Scot on technical grounds from his second place 10 days ago. Coulthard claimed the bumpy Interlagos circuit had worn his car's front wing, leaving it outside legal limits. The FA will ask Tottenham manager George Graham to explain comments he made after last night's 3-2 defeat against Middlesbrough. After a frustrating night at White Hart Lane, Graham described the match officials as incompetent. Spurs' defensive fallibility didn't help. Borough's Hamilton Rickard scored twice, cancelling out goals from Chris Armstrong and David Ginola. Stephen Carr's own goal compounding Graham's misery. Now, the Armed Forces' plans to celebrate the new millennium have been unveiled in spectacular style on the Thames this morning. A special event to be called the Royal Military Tattoo 2000 will take place in Horse Guards Parade in July. Sarah Harris has been on board the frigate HMS Sutherland to witness a spot of abseiling down Tower Bridge.
Well, from a very wet and cold vantage point here on HMS Sutherland, we've just been having a taste of what to expect in the summer, when we'll be seeing the military's contribution to the nation's millennium celebrations. And with me is the producer, Major Michael Parker. So you're hard at work already, I understand.
Yep, slightly. We're trying to recreate 1,000 years of history of defence of the realm on Horse Guards in July. And it's quite a challenge, I must say. What they've done, actually, over those 1,000 years is quite remarkable.
We've seen just some of the stunts this morning with some of your members abseiling down from Tower Bridge. I mean, is that the kind of thing we can expect?
You won't actually get abseiling on Horse Guards Parade, but you'll get lots of other action too. We're showing the past of the services, the present and the future.
I understand you've already sold thousands of tickets. Are you expecting thousands more?
Sadly, only about 72,000 people can come see it live. So if people want to come and see this unique thing, they've got to book pretty quickly. The tickets are just on sale now. But it will be quite extraordinary. It's a wonderful setting on Horse Guards, facing the building, not facing out as it normally does. And the combination of 200 horses and 1,800 men, and some of them the finest positions in the world, these vast screens, projections, the lasers, the fireworks, the pyrotechnics, everything you can think of. We even do the Charge of the Light Brigade. Charge of the Light Brigade, Battle of Waterloo, Battle of Trafalgar, everything you can think. Anything that's really impossible to do, we're having a bash at.
Great, well, good luck with it. I'll let you get out of the wet, Major Parker. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sounds quite exhausting. Now, he was one of our most distinguished actors. His family boasts 5 generations of theatre performers. Now, hundreds of letters, diaries and photographs belonging to Michael Redgrave have been bought by the Theatre Museum in Covent Garden, where family and friends gathered to celebrate last night.
3 generations of Redgraves came together to honour the man who made their name famous throughout the world. The legend and legacy of Michael Redgrave has been bought by the Theatre Museum with the help of Heritage Lottery money.
My father documented everything. I mean, he wrote his diaries, he kept his letters, he wrote books, he kept programmes of all the plays he'd seen, he kept the reviews of all the work he did.
The considerable collection of letters, diaries, books and photographs tells not only the story of a Redgrave, but the story of British theatre, which he influenced so strongly during his lifetime. Gargi Patel, Newsroom South East.
Now on to the weather, and Luton Airport's gradually getting back to normal this lunchtime after snow blocked the runway last night, forcing the airport to close. Scores of flights had to be diverted after snow blocked the runway. Staff are now struggling to cope with the backlog. The airport is now reopened, though delays are expected. Well, it's been an absolutely awful day. Is it still awful? Sarah, tell us more.
Yes, Charlie, I'm afraid it is still pretty awful out and about. It's cold, it's windy, and we've got some sleet and snow still about, particularly over high ground. But what we're really worried about at the moment is the amount of rain. It's been raining throughout the morning across the southeast, and here in Kent, there's been 34 millimetres of rain in just 6 hours. That's well over an inch of rainfall, so it's not really surprising that we do have a Red River flood alert here. This is near Herne Bay, and it's along Westbrook between Sud Hill and south of Thanet Way. It's still raining here in London. We're going to keep hold of a good deal of clouds throughout the afternoon, further bursts of rain with some sleet and snow to high ground. And with further outbreaks of rain, driving conditions really are going to be pretty tricky, and we're likely to see some localised flooding too. Then that rain will continue its progress southeastwards through tonight, and as it clears, it'll turn clear and cold. We're likely to see some icy patches forming on untreated roads. Looking ahead, on Wednesday, there'll be a mixture of sunny spells and wintry showers, but towards the end of the week it gets milder and it also gets drier. Charlie.
Lovely, just the weather for cricket. That's it from us this lunchtime. We have an update at 3:20 for you on BBC Two. From us all here, though, very good afternoon.
Not just about cooking, it's about life.
I've got Classy by Nature, which is obviously me, and Rockstar Jim, which is kind of me.
Jamie's life.
I think that's enough punishment for any man. She told him that I kissed like a cartwheel.
Real life, real food.
That is the world's best fryer.
The return of The Naked Chef, Wednesday, 12th of April on BBC Two.
Smelling foul play in a hotel, back to the beginning for John Nettles as Bergerac on BBC One after Neighbours.